Hi everyone, it's Athena, the Get Notice coach, career coach and government job application specialist. I work with public servants and aspiring public servants who want to land their dream six-figure public sector role. Welcome to my live today. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to tweak your resume for a senior public service role. It's a question I get often, and people perhaps requesting this as a service from me, asking me, can you tweak my resume for me? And often that tweak isn't just a tweak. And the reason for that is that I have a problem with that word tweak, because there's a perception with that you don't have to do very much to your job application to get it up to scratch for the new application that you're making. A tweak is basically an improvement or something that we do by making fine adjustments to our work. And sometimes it's not just about making fine adjustments. We have to look at the job ad, the job description, and research the organisation to find out exactly what it is that they want. And if your current resume isn't responding to the criteria fully and taking into account that new department or the job that you're going for, it may be that you need to actually rewrite parts or all of your resume. Now, sometimes you might apply for roles, for example, in teaching. And I see this a lot with the criteria where they're identical for any teaching job. And so many people regurgitate whatever they wrote the last time they did an application and then wonder why they're not getting an interview. And if you're not taking into account, for example, the school, the location, perhaps other things that the school's really focusing on, because each school, although might have the same curriculum and all of that kind of thing, their focus might be elsewhere that year or for the next 2 or 3 years. And if you haven't taken that into account and don't know about it, you may not get interviewed or shortlisted because you haven't done your research, okay? So it's a really important that you factor in when you're writing a resume, whether you actually need to tweak it or rewrite parts of it or rewrite all of it. And basically, to me, tweaking actually means to alter your resume as much as possible so that you actually respond to every single criterion in that job description. And so therefore, I prefer to use the word tailor rather than tweak, because tailoring your resume means that you're actually reconstructing your resume to a specific role, to a specific department, or that employer, and they're all going to have different needs. So in saying all of that, how do you tweak, or by my definition, how do you tailor your public sector resume so that you stand out and you're shortlisted for a six-figure public sector job? Now, there are lots and lots of tips in this area that I could share with you, but these are my 5 biggest tips. And the reason I've chosen these, and they're in no particular order, by the way, is because I find that these are the ones that people tend to struggle with the most and have a lot of questions around. And it just seems to be what tends to come up for my clients more. So this isn't the whole list, but this is my list that I find really make a very big difference, okay? So have a think about these when you're making alterations to your resume. And so the first one is to be consistent. Be consistent with your fonts, your headings, your presentation. I find a lot of people get templates, and it is absolutely fine to use a template, and it's great. It's a great start, because it might help you with the structure. But what I don't want to see, or what I don't like seeing as someone on that panel or on the other side as a recruiter, is everything squeezed onto the front page, okay? I see templates that are divided into 2 sections where you have a thinner left-hand side and a bigger right-hand side, and we squeeze all our qualifications and skills on the left-hand side and squeeze all of our career experience on the right-hand side. And there's no white space around it. And it's really difficult to read. And all that information might be absolute gold and relevant, but when I can't read it or access what I want straight away, you're making it really hard for me to read. So you need to make it as easy as possible for the person reading it to want to read it. And what we want for them is to keep reading. Okay, so we need to make that first page really clear and really easy to read. You don't have to have, 100 different headings on that front page. It confuses the reader. Have it all in an orderly fashion on the front page. Have some white space around it. It's okay if you go over a couple of pages, okay? You don't have to squeeze it all on the front page. And also your template does not need to be fancy. Your template can be plain. But if you've got clear headings and clear ways that you formatted that document, it's going to be a lot easier for me to read. And then it's not going to bother me if it's 2 or 3 pages, okay? So we want to make the font and the format really easy to read. The second thing for a senior public sector resume is all your key selection criteria should somehow be addressed on that front page in some way, shape or form. And this is especially important because sometimes cover letters might not be requested, or perhaps even selection criteria might not be requested. And you might only need to upload the resume. And in this case, it's even more important to make sure you've addressed the key selection criteria on the front page of that resume, because there is nowhere else for you to do it. So in order to be selected or shortlisted for interview, you need to address the key selection criteria. So this might be the only place that you can actually highlight your suitability for the role. And if it the stats are that, it takes a recruiter about 6 seconds to scan your resume and decide whether they're going to keep reading. So we want to make that first impression, easy for them and for them to find the selection criteria responses on that front page so that they will continue to read the rest of your document. And I know this can be a really hard task, because if the resume is the only place you're going to be able to put your key selection criteria, you're really going to have to be succinct to be able to get a lot of that on the front page. Now, the third tip is to rearrange your resume based on the criteria, not on what the template says you have to do. As I said, templates are a great starting point and they really help you to structure your resume, but you need to rearrange your resume so that the selection criteria all feature on the front. So if the template tells you to put the qualification first, but qualifications are not necessarily an essential criterion and experience is, then you would make an effort to put your experience or start your experience section on that front page, because that is essential and that's what they're going to want to see first. Qualifications might only be desirable, in which case if they don't feature on the front page, it's not an issue. You can feature them on the second page, but I would look at reorganising your resume so that the criteria are all somehow on that front page or as close to the front page as possible. The fourth tip is gaps in your resume. Now, I get asked a lot about gaps, and sometimes I don't get asked about gaps, but I see them. As a recruiter, it's natural for me when I'm looking at career experience chronologically, if there's something missing in the timeline, I can see that straight away, okay, because my eye's trained to see things in order, of the date. So my eye actually goes to it. And the first thing we do is start making assumptions in our head about why there's a gap. Why hasn't the gap been addressed? And so first thing our brains do is go to the negative. So you want to stop that negativity from starting to get into my head. Okay, so address it. Don't hide it. Don't be fancy about hiding it either. You don't have to tell us you were the home economics coordinator at home. You are a mum, you had a career break, that's fine. You travelled, great. Where did you travel? Fantastic. Career break. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be fancy. Just, say what it is. Don't hide it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with traveling, nothing wrong with being a parent. It's only a problem if you see it as a problem, okay? And it can sometimes serve to be a talking point if you get to the interview as well. There's really nothing to hide, so don't hide them, okay? The fifth thing I get asked a lot about in terms of tweaking a resume and should or shouldn't I put it on are referees, okay? And whether to put these on the resume or not, and whether we should tweak our resume by putting these on or not. Basically, my rule for this is, if you get asked for them and they need to be on your resume, put them on. If There's no requirement to put them on because they're only requested at interview. You can leave them off. You don't even have to have a heading for it, and you don't have to say available upon request either. It's just wasting space you could use for something that actually addresses the criteria. If referees are not part of the instructions, you don't have to put them in. If you have the space, put them in. There's also no harm in putting them in, but obviously let those people know that you have done so. Okay. So as long as you follow those instructions, it doesn't really matter. Okay, now these are my tips on how to tweak your resume, or rather in my eyes, tailor your resume. Now, I hope you enjoyed this live broadcast. Down below, I'm going to add links, a link to any of my free webinars. You can also sign up for any of my free resources, or there are also links in there for how to contact me or how to book in a service, or you can DM me at any time on social media. I hope you enjoyed these tips today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.